Hey everyone, the other day I mentioned that I wanted to have some fun and do a little interview show called Distantly Social for when we're all quarantined here. So, what you're about to see is what's called imperfect progress. My buddy and I just recorded this. We talk about everything from music to marketing to being quarantined to personal development and I guess a few other things in there in the hour that we spent. So, we had a lot of fun doing it. I'm going to be doing, I don't know, a few more of them. Have a radio announcer friend that was nice enough to do my intro, so I'm super psyched about it. Thanks, Neil, up in Canada. So without further ado, episode one, Distantly Social, coming right at you.
Welcome to Distantly Social with Ed Goyette, a hopefully short lived series of interesting conversations with people from all over the world.
My first guest, I am so happy to have this gentleman on. He's an entrepreneur. He is a recording artist. He just came out with a fantastic album that he terms as visceral rock and classic rock with all the feels. He's also the principal of his own marketing and creative agency, and seriously, one of the best humans I know on the planet. Welcome to the show, the one and the only Mr. David Fuller, all the way from Melbourne, Australia.
Well, thank you, Mr. Goyette. Happy to be
you all the applause.
I should have got some canned applause lined up. I could have done that. Thanks, mate. That's very nice of you to say.
Well, here's the album, and it's called Redemption. Check it out on his website. I'll have all the links and everything below. And I will tell you, whoops, it just fell out. There it is. I will say that.
Some respect, Ed.
Yeah, no kidding, huh? I will say that we'll start with this because you're the only person that I know that's actually ever produced an album, and the quality of the music on this is just fantastic. And I had the opportunity to hang out with you in New York City and a bunch of other awesome people. And
yeah, just not quite a year ago.
Oh my God, it's been that long.
It's been that long. Well, it's not quite a year, but yeah, which was great. Great memory.
So here we are, stuck. I'm recording this from my workout room. And you are in your studio /
office. The cave is what I call it, the man cave. So just the cave for short.
And
so converted garage.
Tell us about the album a little bit. I want to hear. I think people would like to hear about your music.
What do you want to know?
Oh my God, I don't know. How long you been at it, and kind of give us a little description of what.
Sure. Well, I turn 57 in, I don't know, a couple of weeks, couple of days. What is it? What's the date today? So at the end of this month, I turned 57. And I started playing when I was 14. I picked up the guitar. So what's that, 40 something odd years, 43 years I've been playing. And I started writing songs when I was about 16. I think I wrote my first song and basically been writing ever since. So 40 odd years of songwriting, and I see myself largely as a songwriter more than an entertainer. Singer-songwriter. It's the process of writing that I particularly love. So even more so than I don't generally even think of myself necessarily as a musician first. I think of myself as a writer first, a musician sort of next, and an entertainer way back. So.
Yeah, I was super impressed with. You were nice enough to send this to me, and it was on repeat in my car for a very long time, and just the writing is fantastic on this. And so here's a question: so now that you've been holed up in your basement in the cave, how's the writing going? Is this turned into a creative thing for you, or are you sitting around like me and just eating a bunch of carbs?
I'm not going to lie, there is more carb in my diet than there was a couple of weeks ago, although I'm going to probably try and get a hold of that. I eat a carb diet. I can't afford to, mate. I struggle as it is, so to keep the weight down, the last thing I can afford to do is give into that. But being locked up in my cave is nothing unusual for me, to be honest, mate. I spend a lot of time out here in relative isolation anyway, so it's kind of business as usual in that respect for me. I'm used to being out here on my own. So I don't know. Things have changed in the sense of my day job. I normally get out and see my clients, and I haven't done that for the last week or so. And trying to work out what we're doing remotely. Um, so there's just change everywhere. But the thing that I keep telling myself and everyone around me is, yep, this is what it is. But we're all in the same boat. I mean, everybody is faced with exactly the same dilemmas as we
Yeah,
are.
on the other side of the world.
Yep.
So here's the question: like, what are you actually under right now? Is there like a full-on lockdown, or what's the
Well,
actual directives that you guys are getting?
it's changing by the minute, mate. So I'm waiting for, I guess, our state government to make announcements this morning. They may well have already done that, but it's pretty close to a lockdown. So there's changes last night, and I'm scrambling to try and keep up with them, which is what I think most people are trying to do. From my perspective, it already is, and I think the whole idea of being, the social distance thing, or the distantly social. I like your take on it. Is essentially about creating that distance, and if people won't do it, then they lock us down. It's as simple as that, and that's what's happening here, because unfortunately the message didn't seem to be getting through. So we are getting close to a lockdown if we're not already in one, which means essential services are running, but they're discouraging basically people from being out and about.
So we've talked about this over the last week or so. We've chatted back and forth. Is it what's the mood there in Australia? Is because I know up here we have kind of a combination of, you get some people freaking out, you get some people saying it's the flu, you get some people who are not taking it seriously at all. I think overall the general mood is that people are taking it seriously, and people are doing keeping apart and whatnot. But there does seem to be this pretty loose adherence to what we're being asked to do here in the States. What's it like down under?
I think that's a pretty good summary of what's like here. And it's a bit hard because being isolated, it's hard to judge the mood too. So unless you're talking to people, you see what you get on social media feeds and stuff like that. And it's always kind of hard, I think, to judge the full mood from a social media feed. But
Right.
I think most people are taking it seriously. If they weren't, they are now. I mean, when governments start talking straight and start telling you the facts, something's seriously up. So, I think that's the greatest indicator of mood.
Right.
When your politicians are talking straight to you, and just as an aside, politicians just keep doing that from here on in. Just talk straight.
Isn't that interesting that this thing is and maybe this is the way it is no matter what, is that no matter where you are in the world, we're all going through the same thing. We all essentially have, the same struggles, the same joys, and the same worries, and we're all just kind of make it through day by day. And then you have something like this come across, and it's the great leveling thing. But it's just really interesting.
Oh, it is. We're all human. Doesn't matter what language you speak, what country you live in. We're all human. We're the same creature. Might be cultural differences, but yeah, I think we all struggle with the same things day in, day out. We all, so it doesn't surprise me that it's a common thing.
It really doesn't. I mean, we've known each other, what, 2 years now?
A couple of years, yeah.
Like that, 2 years. And we actually got to be in the same room once, whatever, twice.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
But that was a lot of fun. That was a lot of fun.
That was a lot of fun.
Yeah. But it's really interesting when you talk to people, because we talk pretty much at least once a week or over Marco Polo or something, where we're in pretty close contact. But it's just really interesting that how everybody's lives are. It's just the same. It's the same thing, just a different version, I guess. Right.
Same thing, different accent.
Different accent, right? Yours is better. I like your accent better.
Well, I don't have one from my perspective. The rest of the world's got an accent. I don't. That's
right. Exactly.
That's how it works, right? We always see everything from our own perspective.
So you holding up all right?
Yeah, doing okay. I mean, look, I think I'd be like everyone. You have moments. It's a wave, so or a series of waves, and it's I have moments where I'm like, what the, and moments where I'm like, give me the carbs,
Mm-hmm.
and then there are moments like, well, okay, this is how it is.
Right.
And so my take on it is the quicker everybody adjusts, the quicker you can adjust to what the reality is rather than what your reality was or what you wish it was, the better. And that's pretty much my approach to life anyway. It's like, okay, so this is the reality today, and this is what we're dealing with. It's not what I planned, it's not what I wanted or hoped for, but it is what it is. And that's not being dismissive anyway. It's just simply facing what it is and saying, okay. And we're all in the same boat. I mean, this is the thing that, I would consider my situation really good. I've got a roof over my head. I've got food. Um, I've got all the things I need. And there are people out there literally at the coalface who are toughing, doing way, way tougher than we are. We're being asked to isolate. And to me, that's not a big deal. I guess the isolation doesn't worry me so much. The financial thing is the concern, but then everybody's faced with exactly the same problem. You can't work, you can't make money. How do you survive? So I guess, governments around the world are scrambling to work that out. I think we need to give them the space to do that, and we need to give each other the space to deal with it, which is kind of what I'm trying to do at the moment.
Mm-hmm.
Work out where we all sit. I think we just need to be patient and understanding.
Right. Now you had said something a while back that stuck with me about how you have an approach for when things go wrong, and I think that's such a great approach. Like, share that. Like that was really cool.
Yeah, well, I have a little thing that I remind myself when things go to hell in a handbasket, and they do on a regular basis in life. Things go wrong. That's just how it is. I give myself 24 hours to wallow in self-pity. So that's the first step, to acknowledge it is what is happening and to say, okay, this sucks. This is how I feel about it. So I give myself that 24-hour window just to wallow in self-pity. So if that means sitting and eating carbs and watching Netflix, that's okay. And then get on with it. That's the next part. Get up and say, okay, what went wrong? How do we fix it? How do we come out the other side of this in a better position than we went in? And, I've applied that many, many times over the years, and, holds me in pretty good stead. So, and that's pretty much my approach to this too, and what I'll be talking to my clients about. Okay, none of us can work, but we've got who knows how long to actually work on stuff that we probably should have been doing.
Right.
Planning for the other side of this. We all have to take care of what our immediate needs are now, and then we need to be thinking towards what's happening at the other side, because there will be an end to this, and so drop your bundle by all means, but 24 hours, folks. That's kind of it. Although
I love that. I love that because it gives you the permission to be honest with yourself about how you're feeling. But then, I when you told that to me the first time, I just think it's a great strategy to have, because then at that 24-hour mark, there's an end point where you're going to force yourself to go like, okay, I've given myself that day and we're done.
And in fairness, I've broken the rule a few times, because I think we're all human, but I think that the trick is to remind yourself, okay, this is the rule. Now pick yourself up and get going,
Now, how specific do you get? Do you set a timer, or do you just say this time tomorrow?
No, not really. Just a day, and that might be 5 minutes. Sometimes it might be a little longer other times. But I think the idea is just to be sort of aware that you might be in a funk, and why acknowledge it, and that you need to do something to move out of it. I think that's the key, and it's part of being human.
Now, tell me about what you do for your clients.
Oh, well, that's a really hard thing to define, to be honest. So for 21 years or so now, I've been in the web space, so building websites. I built my first one in 1999. So, I built websites for clients for many years, ran a graphic house. So we did, design. And then I sort of pivoted the business a few years ago and focused more on the other side of that. So helping clients take their web presence and build on that to actually find their ideal clients and build their businesses. So I work pretty much one-on-one with most of my clients, just for everything from, registering a domain name through to strategy and content and analysis, all that sort of stuff, strategic stuff. So, and it varies enormously from client to client and from day to day.
Mm-hmm.
And so I refer to myself as a generalist. Not necessarily an expert in any one area of it, but for small business, which is what I deal with, a generalist is probably the best thing, because who can afford to have a whole series of specialists when you're living hand to mouth?
And do you see things changing going forward with the business, especially like with this whole thing?
Well, I always see things changing, and at the moment, things are changing by the minute. So definitely things change. I think the fundamentals remain the same, but definitely things will change. And it's an opportunity, I think, to look at what you've got and see what's valuable within that, and to work on that and grow that and learn the things you need to learn, and come out of this, as I said, stronger than you went in, or at least a basis to grow on so that you're stronger. To that end, I'm actually putting together I was doing this anyway. This is one of the things I was doing this year. I developed a new business, which is called the Rough Diamond Academy, which was essentially to take what I do with my clients on a one-on-one basis and distill it down so that people could self-help, join a community to support each other, small businesses, to learn the things they need to learn. So the launch of that's kind of been a little bit interrupted, and things have changed and my approach has changed, but I'll probably be opening that group very shortly to business.
And I'll add on to that, because just you and I have been talking about that, the Rough Diamond Academy a little bit, and it's just a brilliant idea. I know, coming from my perspective over the years, like I wish you had done this and we met like 6 years ago, because that would have helped out a lot.
I wish I'd done it 6 years ago, Ed.
But no, that's one of the struggles, right? If you're in a small business and you try to run a small business, so you have the running of the small business, you have the employees, you have all those pieces that go together with that, and then on top of it, you have to be a marketing expert. You have to have that mindset of always looking 3 steps down the road at seeing what's coming and being able to communicate that. And I think what you're doing is just so needed, where I can join a community and go, oh wow, like I'm in the same boat with a lot of these people, and then here's all this content that I can easily get through and move forward. And you're going to be in that group too, like.
Yeah, absolutely. I would never call myself an expert. For one, I actually really don't like the term. I would consider myself a student, an active student in the area. I'm constantly learning, and I'm drawing from other people who are, specialists in that area, because they're always learning too, and trying to draw that and then distill it down into small chunks for small business so that they get what they absolutely need, not the whole lot, right? Because there's just too much. And this was the issue with small business from my point of view, is that you don't really need to be a marketing expert. You need to be a marketing aware, right? So you need to know what's out there, what your choices are, and to work out where to put your focus at any given time, because there's only so many hours, there's only so many dollars. And I often see people getting way ahead of themselves and working on areas that, like, what's your return there? Is that leading to sales? Yes, it's great from a long-term marketing point of view, but is it actually leading to sales now? Because right now you need to have enough money to fund your payroll. What are you working on that's bringing in the dollar today? And I think that's really what I try to bring to my clients, is that sort of overview to say, okay, where is your focus and what's going to bring you the return right now? What do you need to know now? Because there's just a massive amount. I certainly don't know it all.
Yeah. Well, I don't think any of us do.
And that's on camera now for
right.
all my family. If they get to watch this, will have that. They'll replay that forever.
Well, if the program is even close to as good as this album, you're going to be doing something.
Thanks, man. I hope so.
Oh, seriously. Hey, before I forget, talk to me. Are people going crazy about toilet paper down there too?
Oh, the toilet paper wars, the great toilet paper wars of 2020. Oh goodness, so we'll be talking about this for generations.
So you guys are all sold out of toilet paper too, like the markets and stuff.
It's coming back, and I think initially people were just crazy, panic buying, and I mean, I don't know where it all went. Someone's got like storage sheds full of toilet paper, but you couldn't get it for love or money, and it was
up here too. There are people driving around with truckloads. I mean, when this thing first started, it's like Black Friday times 100 when people are just jumping on things of toilet paper. I just don't understand it.
Well, I guess there's a couple of factors. People probably the fear factor and that sort of, we could be caught without any rush out and get it. And I think there's the opportunists, probably more organised and went out and tried to hoard it up so they could sell it when there wasn't any at a huge profit. Which from a business point of view, I can kind of respect, but not really.
Seriously,
you know what I mean?
Seriously, you got to be scalping toilet paper off the corner. Like, what are you doing?
Exactly. I don't know. I don't know.
I don't know if you saw that. There was a guy who bought 70,000 bottles of hand sanitizer.
Yeah.
Did you see that story?
No, but he's going to have extremely clean hands, or very cracked and broken.
He went to like all the dollar stores and stuff, and he bought 70,000 bottles of hand sanitizer, and he was trying to sell it on Amazon for like $40 a bottle or $40 for two. I can't remember what it was, and Amazon shut him down. So now he's stuck with a storage facility full of 70,000 bottles of hand sanitizer, and he can't. eBay won't sell it. Nobody will sell it for him.
Yeah, I guess I suppose he saw an opportunity, but it's a fairly selfish one, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, you think? Yeah. I don't know. I don't know what's going on with the world right now.
Well, I think that's part of the thing in business. You have to look at opportunities, right? You have to see the opportunity and go for it. But there's also an ethical responsibility, social responsibility.
Yeah,
well, where do you draw the line? I think, I'm glad he's stuck with his 70,000 bottles. He can keep them. Because all that'll happen is the opportunity, the window closes, and they create more hand sanitizer. Things level out, and production supply is there, and then
that's the thing that I think is hilarious because, it ran out quickly, but there's at least here there's not a huge supply chain issue. There's trucks coming up the coast every day, hundreds and hundreds of trucks coming up every day with stuff. So we're going to end up with plenty. So then what do you think?
So, I mean, I saw that we went out to Quick Shop yesterday, and there was certainly supplies more than there was a week ago, and that'll get better. And they're starting to regulate that. So you get to take one pack of toilet paper. I think I saw somewhere, I'm not sure where it was, I thought it was absolutely genius, as a hand sanitizer bottle was $4.50 for one, for two it was $95, right? So the more you buy, the more expensive you get. I love that. It's the quite opposite. It's genius, right? It just makes sense.
Oh, so you guys are going into fall now, right?
Autumn, yeah. Absolutely, we are in autumn, and
you had a hellacious summer down there. What, like 114 degrees or something like that?
Oh yeah, in various parts of the country, it's different temperatures. In Melbourne, where I am, it gets very hot in summer, and it was a brutal summer for all of Australia, really, because of the fires, and it was horrendous. So we had a horrible start to the year, and it hasn't improved, as it turns out.
So we're going right from her historic fires into world-stopping viruses.
This is hard to wrap your head around, Ed, isn't it? I mean, this is unprecedented.
It really is.
Who's ever been through this? No one. So, yeah. Well, there you go. Adapt. That's the lesson, I think.
I think that is. And that's why, honestly, like, this is just fun. I was just sitting around going, you know what? Like, we're all told to socially distance, and you're just such an interesting guy and a great friend. And I'm like, you know what? Actually, I was thinking about you when I thought about this whole thing, because I'm like, I need to talk to Dave, because Dave's a really interesting guy. And so, like, just you got a way about you that I'm like, oh, like, it's always fun, and I always get so much out of our conversations. I'm like, geez, that'd be fun to like jump on a Zoom call with Dave and a bunch of other people, and I'm like, oh, hey, here's all the other people, And,
well, I'm glad someone thinks I'm interesting, Ed.
Oh yeah, I'm a million miles away, but you got me in your corner, that's for sure. And then,
Okay. I mean, we talk quite a bit, and we do the distantly social thing all the time.
oh yeah, we're
I
used
mean,
to.
I've got good friends here, and as well, and we catch up when we can, of course, but you know, we don't have that option, generally speaking, to catch up over a coffee. So we chat.
That's something really interesting. We've talked about this before. Is that I've got coffee here. We've talked about this before because I talked to you, and I talked to our friend Tess, who we'll probably see on this, who's also in Australia. Penny out in Seattle, who hopefully will be here. We got people up in Canada. We got people in New York. All these people from all over the world that we've been connected to just through the computer, just through our phones. And we've developed these relationships over the past 2 years or so that some of my best friends, if not my best friends in the world, are all virtual. Well, not all virtual, but a good chunk of them are virtual.
Absolutely.
And I think there's going to be a lot more of this coming out of this whole virus thing, and that we're being forced right now to do this. Like the world.
It's a really interesting thing, isn't it? Because I think we probably all went through this early on. We're saying, well, we've never. This is before we'd met. We've never met, and we've developed these strong friendships. Is it real?
Right.
I think that was a question that floated around for a little while.
Yeah.
Is it real? And I think Tess Crawley might have put that to bed with of course it's bloody real. It's like, okay, well, if Tess says it's real, it's real.
You're right. We'll trust Tess.
And it's true. I think friendship and how do you define it? I mean, I don't know. It's
right.
not necessarily a physical presence thing, is it? So, and we're often separated from the people we love.
Mm-hmm.
We probably spend more of our time away from the people we love than we do with them. Do we stop loving them when we're distant? No, I mean we don't. So it's not
Right.
a physical thing. It never has been.
Well, that was really interesting. A little backstory. So there's a group of us from all over the place. I just mentioned a bunch of them, and we had the opportunity to all meet in New York. That was a year ago, right? Yeah.
Yep.
Wow. And we all had the opportunity to go down for a couple of days in New York and all meet. And I was sitting in a coffee shop, and Dave here walked in and patted me on the shoulder, and it was literally just like this. It was like we sat down, had a coffee, and we were caught up because we'd been talking anyway. But we spent a great couple of days, and it was like hanging out with family.
Yeah, totally.
And it's just incredible. And I think based on we've had that opportunity over the past couple of years to do this, and to really prove that you can have these distant relationships that are just as real as anyone who's going to come over to your house for a drink on a Saturday night.
Yeah.
And this is just like pushing the world almost in that direction a little bit. I think it's expansive,
Well, I think it's really interesting. We use that word a lot. Interesting, don't we?
Don't we? Yeah.
We'll put that aside. I remember tapping you on the shoulder. I remember a couple of things from that point of view. I remember you being taller than I thought, or me shorter than I thought, one or the other. And then it was interesting. It was like, okay, that's it. We've now met in the real, and we sat down, we had coffee, and it was a great conversation before some of our other friends came and joined, and the conversation got even better, more interesting, as it happened. We'd never met, but it was like we'd all knew each other so well. And it was interesting from that point of view that you weren't just a bunch of talking pixels, you were actually
weird. So like 3D.
3D. So meeting you was cool. But I think the point is that any relationship, we're doing relationship advice now, is effort, right? If you put in the effort, it doesn't matter whether you're distant or not. It's a question of turning up. Most things in life, I think, are a question of turning up. And this is actually, you can go back to the marketing thing or music or friendships or whatever. It's a question of turning up. What happens when you turn up, who knows? But if you don't turn up, I can tell you nothing happens.
And that's a brilliant point. That really is. And it's that and vulnerability. We met through a course that, the whole group of us met through, we were all part of this Mel Robbins course, and we went through this 8-week course in which you kind of bared your soul quite a bit, and
just a little.
Yeah, just a little. And they had to work on they had to work on some of the things you were trying to get through, and become a better person. And the thing that we talked about early on is that through that paradigm, we all met kind of from the inside out. And
yes.
you led with you led with your deepest. You led with okay, hey, you don't know me. And it was actually kind of freeing, because you're like, I'm never going to see these people again. Okay, I'll take the advice.
Right. How wrong were we?
Fast forward, like we're all together. But it was really interesting that there's the interesting word again, that when you do that, it strips away, it fast forwards like 20 years, and you get to know the essence of a person right out of the gate. And then you kind of work from deeper up to shallow. And it's
yes.
It was seriously, because
and I know you coined that term. I remember I've used that phrase quite a few times, meeting from the inside out. It's so true. You met the depth first,
right,
and then introduced slowly to the facade, if you like, or the shallow, if you want to call it that. But we normally meet people, and it's like a social thing where it's like, here's what I want you to think of me.
Yep. And here's who I really am.
Yeah, and down here is who I really am, and you got to work your way down there.
Yeah.
Right? That was completely reversed in that scenario. It was like, well, here's the real me, and if that hasn't made you run away, then I guess you'll be okay.
But then I'll tell you my top 4 albums.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
Yeah, and I think that's where I think the opportunity, what I'm doing right here, is to try to get a little bit more of that into the world. It's saying, okay, it is okay to be a little vulnerable. It is okay to show yourself as who you are. And I did a whole writing thing over the past few months where I've been just putting out things that I've written that I would never ever do before. And I decided one day, I'm like, what the hell? I'll just start putting out my writing, just like you put out your music. And the interesting thing that happened, and still happening when I did that, is the people who didn't dig it left, and the people that I had never been on my radar and I had never even met all came flooding into my life. And I've seen and made so many new friends just from putting honesty into the world.
Look, I think that's the thing, isn't it? It's hard to be vulnerable. Your writing stuff's interesting. I know you had some interesting stuff happen. I call it the muse. When you get that visitation, and it's like, where you're from. I guess we've come full circle. Go back to the music thing with me now. But as a writer, I think as a young writer, I tried to write. I'd sit down and I'd try to write. I'd be trying to write what I thought people wanted to hear. I'd write, verse, chorus, verse, bridge, and that still happens, right? But it's kind of almost like formula, and you try to be clever, and all that sort of stuff. And it's generally junk, right? I mean, it just is. Which is probably why the vast majority of songs I wrote in the first sort of 5-10 years, I don't remember, because they're not worth remembering.
Mm-hmm.
A few of them have survived, and they're probably the accidental ones. Now, had I been aware, I would have probably made the connection that those ones are the ones where I didn't try, where it came through and I got the hell out of the way and it just happened. So now I'd have a very different approach to the whole writing thing and that vulnerability, and say, well, I don't even think, I call myself a writer, but in many ways I don't even think of myself as the writer. I think of myself more as the vessel, right? I'm the conduit for the writing. And I think of it more as, the universe is in a constant state of creation, right? It's constantly creating. And it's looking for somewhere to put that.
Mm-hmm.
So you get back to this whole idea of turning up. So if you turn up, which is what I do every day, early in the morning, I turn up and I'm here and I'm like, okay, what have you got for me today, universe? I sit, I play guitar, an idea comes, I capture everything. I capture every little idea I have in a program called Evernote, and I've done that for at least the last 10 years. And
really,
because I never know where it's going to go, right? But I know that I have to capture it, because if I don't start the process of capturing it, the universe kind of, it's impatient. It'll move on to the next vessel. And I think you can see the massively creative people in the world, those artists that seem to just churn out music.
mm-hmm.
Prince was a great example. Like, apparently thousands of songs in the vault. I think they were funnels. They stood there, whether physically or metaphorically, with their arms open, saying, "Here I am, just pour into me," and turning up with that kind of idea is what I try to do now as a writer, is turn up and say, well, I'm here. Now it's going to filter through you. You've got a view on life, you've got a perspective, you've got experience. So it's going to come through you and be filtered through that, and so it's going to pick up bits of you along the way, but without question. But the universe is just looking for somewhere to put its creativity, and turning up is your way of saying, or at least my way of saying, here I am, I accept that, and I'm grateful for it. Please use me today. Mm-hmm. And I think for me, the best songs I've written have come that way. They're almost a shock when they come. Like, sometimes I still do this, and I still do this even when I listen to my own tracks and I listen to some of the other musicians on the song. I think, wow, where did that come from? If I sat down and tried to play that way, like if I tried to play the piano like that, I probably couldn't do it. But if I put myself in the zone and it just happens and I play, somehow I'm free to play, mm-hmm. or I'm free to write. So I think turning up is a massive part of life.
Go back to one thing you said, and I really find that interesting when you said that the universe is impatient, and if you and it will move on to another vessel. And I think there's so much there in that.
I didn't know I was going to say that, Ed, to be honest. So there you go.
Yeah. Because when you think about that, if you just pause on that point for a second, and that really comes down to being present and being open.
Yeah.
And if you live in a way that's present and open, then a lot gets taken off your plate for you.
That's right. That's very true.
It really does. If you're just in the moment with and you don't and you've released your control and you're trying to not have expectations about what's coming next, and you're just like, okay, what's it gonna be? Like I like what you just said about, like, okay, what are we gonna do today? It's that in itself, I think, is a great practice. Like, that would be a great practice for anyone to get into, in that constantly asking and being open to the answer, and seeing where it's manifested in your life, and the creativity that's come through you. And just my dipping my toe into this in the past month or so, a couple months or so, I completely agree. It's life-changing stuff. It's a simple process that takes forever.
and I was going to say that the thing is, you're saying you're dipping your toe into the water, and it's relatively new for you, this concept. You're started off with Thoughtuary in January, right? And you were just writing today, and that's a great practice. And it's incredible that you're prepared to be so vulnerable just to put that out there as you're doing it. It's like, here's my stream of consciousness, or here's however you want to view it, with the universe working through me, or me just putting my thoughts in the world. I'm going to now share that with you as I do it, unfiltered, and or at least filtered through my experience, but without me changing it. Mm-hmm. And that's an incredibly brave thing to do. And I know, as a writer, as a young writer, one of my great fears that people would criticize my work, right? That they would have something to say, and it generally happened. It happened a lot. People have got an opinion. You really should try doing that in a major chord. It'd be a lot happier, right? Or whatever. And it's like, well, I didn't. It's a minor. Get over it, right? Or whatever. Today I'm like, oh, whatever. today doesn't worry me, but as a young guy, I did. And so it's incredible that you've been prepared to do that early in the cycle and just put yourself out there.
Well, it's that actually started in October. It was Thoughttober. And
I was Thoughttober. You're right. Yep.
October was inspired by Inktober, where artists will take a challenge every day and take a prompt. And I'm like, oh, what the hell? I've always written things here and there, and I figured I'd get it out. I can understand, back before I started doing this, putting stuff out there and going, okay, I'm gonna do that. That would have been scary, and it would have been something that would have caused a lot of discomfort. And you, with your music and being so out there, on the other side of it, it just makes sense. And I think my big takeaway from doing this is seeing how it builds on itself, and it's like practicing the piano or the guitar, or it's like any practice that you want to get better at. The more I'm doing it, I feel the easier it's coming, and the easier it's going out, and the more, I don't know, the more impactful it is. And once you start getting even just a little bit of feedback that says it means something to someone, and I'll get messages saying like, geez, thank you for that, or, I heard this at the right time, or these words meant something to me. And that's what just tells you that, oh, okay, I'm supposed to be doing this for a reason. And one thing that I'm trying to do is to tell people it's okay that you have your people out there. And if you're not showing the world your true self, then you're never going to get those people. You're going to get a bunch of people that think they know you that don't. And
it's, I think I've said this to you before, profit is never recognized at home. I think that's an old saying. So it's the people who already know you don't necessarily catch on to this. So you think, and it's a mistake I think people make when they start their creative endeavors, that they want the people around them to give them the feedback or validation they're looking for.
Right.
But they're absolutely the wrong people. They don't love you for that. They love you for all the things they know. I don't consider or look to my friends or family to be my fans.
Mm-hmm.
Right? As a musician, far from it. I get great support from them because they love me. They don't. My daughters always crack me up. They like my posts, and every now and then I say, "Oh, thanks for liking that." I say, "Oh, I didn't listen to it." Thanks for your honesty. Appreciate that. But it's all true. They love me, right?
Yeah.
They love me, so they want to help me. They like my posts, but they don't care.
Oh man, that's hilarious. That's hilarious.
They're not my fans. They're my family. So I think that's part of it is you've got to put it out wider, and you've got to, and even then, don't even look for that validation. And it's hard not to. We're human. We want feedback. And I think back to marketing, as a human, remember we're all human. We want feedback. So don't forget to give people feedback and talk to them. It's a conversation, right? So if you're putting stuff out there, if someone comments, reply to them.
Mm-hmm.
Let them know that they've been heard, right? Thank you. I really appreciate that. Or, what did you love about that? Or, someone says to you, that really touched, my soul today. So I'm so glad that really lifts my spirits. Are you okay? Like, start the conversation, because that's what it's about, and it's a really long-term process too. I mean, it doesn't just happen. You might get lucky, but generally you just got to get. One of the best sayings I heard recently, I saw it on one of our mutual friends showed a picture of her office wall, and there's all these sayings up there, and there's this one that said, "You're going to want to quit. Don't." And I love that.
Exactly.
Because I want to quit just about every day, but I don't.
Especially now.
Yeah, you want to curl up in a ball.
Yeah.
And if you do, 24 hours max.
Yeah, 24 hours, the David Fuller rule. I like that. Oh man, this has been fantastic. We kind of covered the entire gamut here.
Yeah, well, some of it anyway. Yeah.
Full circle. We did everything. We did the album. We did the whole thing. So I am going to post a link to your site with this. Check it out. I would really.
Thanks, man. Appreciate that. It's
recommend it. I could probably sing most of the songs on here verbatim.
What's your favorite, Ed? I'm curious, mate.
Oh, Carry the Cross is really great.
That's actually not on that album, but I'm going to call you on that. But you know the track. It's actually a release you can get online. That's one of my favorites too, and that's a really good example of a song that came through that I was not expecting. Wrote it fast, was writing about something completely differently, and the universe took over and said, "No, no, no, I want you to write this today."
It's interesting. I listened to Carry That Cross a million times when you sent it first, and I think that's the one song of yours that really, no matter how many times I've listened to it, it always surprises me in some way.
Surprises me.
You know,
that song still brings up so much emotion in me as a writer when I play it or listen to it, and it's a really difficult subject and a really I don't know, incredibly emotional subject. And a good example of turning up. I turned up, I started to play. It was actually my mother had passed, and I thought, well, I need to work through some of this grief and just maybe I can write something. And I always find it really hard as a writer to go direct at a subject, and I tend to skirt around it. And then I started writing something. Some words came, some music came. I started to write that, and then just out of the blue, this song came as I was writing, and I literally wrote the whole thing from top to tail in probably 30 minutes, and it was like, wow, and the emotion was just like, I'm like, I don't know if I can do this, I don't know if I can actually put this one out there. It's just so, you can probably hear this one online. I think it's actually on Spotify.
I'm going to post links to all this stuff. I'd say if I had to pick between all the ones on the album, Redemption and The Seventh Floor are my two top.
Yeah, Redemption nearly didn't make the album, and it's the album title.
Yeah.
The song I wrote years ago, and it was, it came on, I think it was the second last track I decided to put on the album. And it's interesting how many people have come back to me, friends have known me for, a friend I've known nearly 40 years has said it's the best thing you've ever written. And I'm like, really?
Wow.
Which surprised me, but I think it's a very human song. You mentioned visceral rock and why I call it that. I think it's because it's deeper than intellect, right? So you can be very clever as a lyricist and as a musician. You can write brilliant, intellectual music or write intellectual lyrics, but I think for me it's a little deeper than that, and it's a feel, right? It's an emotion, deep emotion, and it's visceral, and Redemption is a song of a guy who was on his knees, literally, and that was me. The album's very personal, and I was in a really, really dark place, really dark, a place I would never want anyone to be, and that whole album is kind of built on that period of life. So it's a hard song. The first Storm Coming Down is also every bit as along the same lines. Yeah. Seventh Floor, which started the whole thing, right? The story of the Seventh Floor. So it's hard to be that vulnerable. But the story of Redemption, the book ends, if you listen to the album, and I'll give you this, you may not have put this together. At the beginning, you have Redemption, and it's not a linear line through the album, but Redemption at the beginning, scars at the end. So Redemption's like, am I ever going to make my way through this? And, am I ever going to be able to redeem myself to myself, right? Because that's essentially what it's about. It's not so much in the eyes of other people, but to myself. Can I reconcile my humanness, my own failings and my flaws and my inabilities to cope and deal with stuff, which might be very relevant to people right now? And am I ever going to be able to get through that and forgive myself for my humanness? Mm-hmm. That's really what that song's about. Scars at the other end of the album, the bookend, is one that's saying, literally everything you've thrown at me, life, I have survived. I may be scarred, I may be hurting, I may have been on my knees, but I'm still here fighting, right? And it's a defiant song.
Right.
One is a sort of a begging kind of, am I ever going to be able to get up off the canvas? The other end is I'm back up on my knees and I'm ready to throw some punches. Come at me. Mm-hmm. And that's why I put them top and tail, because it kind of completes that cycle. So, you know, that's why I say these songs for me are incredibly personal. And,
Yeah.
um, so yeah, check them out. Carry Across, well, it's a whole different thing. That's not about me at all. But
Yeah, that's a whole different song, but it's like the watching you, and if you've never watched anybody produce an album, and I knew that there was a lot of work that went into this.
years.
Seeing, and I caught the tail end of yours, right? Like seeing you agonize over every note, like every last, every last take and every last like level of every instrument, and it was fascinating. It was fascinating to me to watch that, the highs and the lows that you went through. I could tell when you're like, oh Jesus, it's never gonna get done. And then you post a couple things from the studio, the mixing of it and everything. It was just fascinating. And I think that's one thing that I think that people, as non-musicians, me as a non-musician, I consider myself a creative, and I know what goes into the creative process, but I've never produced something commercially. I've never had to work with other people on something so complex as, number one, music in multiple instruments and multiple arrangements, but also something so personal that you want to get out in the best way possible. And it was a real education for me watching that.
It's an education for me doing it, I have to say.
Side. I was just, it was just paying attention to that process. And now when I look at, I'll be honest, when I look at especially the way that you're doing it, this was your project. You didn't have the millions of dollars behind you, to get this thing produced and to get the marketing out and everything. This came from you, and it came through you, and everything was done, essentially by you. And to watch that, and it gave me a new appreciation for independent artists, and it gave me a new appreciation for the thousands of hours that go into any piece of music.
Thousands of hours. You're absolutely right. If you knew exactly what I've been through to produce that, and you saw a bit of it, you'd probably be horrified and quite stunned. That's true of most musicians on my own. So there are musicians I use around the world. So a shout out to all of the people who played on the album, and they literally come from all over the world. But by and large, most of this, from the writing to the arrangements to the mixing, I learned how to mix music to do this album, because I couldn't afford. Well, I was not particularly happy with what I'd got when I went into a studio. It wasn't quite my sound or what I wanted, so I learned how to do it. I had to go off and do courses and learn how to really mix. It was mastered by a mastering engineer, but so everything. I mean, it's a real labour of love, because I doubt I'll ever get the money back, but that's not the point. And right now, I have to tell you, this is something that you probably don't even realize. I mean, when I started off, that album was, $20, and then you've got then I made it 25, and it was free delivery anywhere in the world. You can download that album today for $5.
$5?
Not because it's worth more, but because here we are in a world where people are wondering whether they're going to get their next paycheck from. And I'm like, I can't ask people to pay that at the moment. What's more important is that they can get it. And I'm considering I'm really considering actually offering it for free as a download very shortly, because I think it's more important than, we're all in the same boat as we said earlier, right? So this is a difficult period of time. And, I guess it's partially as a marketing thing. The more people that hear it, the more fans I have at the end down the track. But by the same token, I've realized there's a few things. You said it'll never get done if I let him go. I understand now what they call a release, because you have to let it go. I know very intimately every mistake and problem within that album. And if you pointed them out to me, if you've picked them up or you think something, I already know it.
Mm-hmm.
I know it's there. I know all the issues. I know how I could do it better now. But at some point,
I remember very vividly, and I don't remember the song it was, but I remember you being very frustrated and saying, "I've decided today that this is it. It is what it is. I just obsessed over this one guitar part for 3 hours or whatever it was." And I remember you being very, very obsessed about that one thing, and you said, "I'm putting it to bed. It's done." And then you went on to the next thing. But it was like the pain in there. It was funny. It was like
that was a learning thing for me to let it go. And there comes a point, because I'd been writing, the first song on that album was written in 2011. So I'd been sitting with this material for years, and I think the oldest or the most modern recent song on it is 2016. So there was like a 5-year period. Well, it's 2020. I've written a lot since then.
Right.
And so at some point in time, you have to let it go. And that's where I was. I don't think, to be honest, I could have fiddled with it forever and it wouldn't have made any difference.
Right. Well, I think it's important.
Well,
I guess I think we just did like another 10 minutes on music.
Well, yeah, exactly. Well, I almost thought we were wrapping up, and then we.
Oh man! Well, this has been awesome, and I'll be probably talking to you anyway tomorrow. But for those of you who are looking at this maiden voyage of Distantly Social, putting all the links to connect with Mr. Fuller in the post here, I would highly recommend, again, checking out his album that you've just heard about. And yeah, it's been fantastic, my friend, and we will talk soon. Any last words of wisdom for people in the States and all over the world?
Do I have any words of wisdom?
Yes.
Look, stay calm, listen to the messaging and follow the instructions, and just tell everyone you love them. And that's not just today because we have a virus running around the world. Do that every day for as long as you're on this planet. Remember to let people you know that you love them, It's a really simple thing.
It really is.
I know what I forgot, man, but
Excellent. Well, we will talk soon.
Yep.
Next time,
on that score, love you, brother, and we'll talk.
Love you too. Take care. Take care of yourself. Bye.
Pushing up